Hello and welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast. I am Caleb Jones. This is the podcast where we talk about setting up your own location, independent business, moving to a less bad country, or at least setting up an international backup plan, and do all these things for very little money. And today, I thought I would talk about something that I've gotten questions about. And then whenever I talk about this with people who ask the questions, they get very animated and excited. So this is how I plan out my travel. As many of you know, I travel the world every year. I am traveling, it depends the year. I would say anywhere from, 3 months to 7-8 months a year. I'm traveling internationally. And this year is no exception. I will be in about, 8-9 different countries this year. I think that's the number, maybe a little more, not sure. And so what I'll do for this podcast is I will kind of lay out for you conceptually the process I use to plan my travel. Because when you live the lifestyle that I do, international-based Five Flags lifestyle, it gets a little complicated. So you have to be very organized. Now, if you're the kind of person who lives in one country and visits a second country, like as a backup flag or a backup living flag or something, you just go back and forth between two countries, you probably don't need to really focus on a huge amount of organization. It does require some organization if you have multiple homes like that. But if you live the lifestyle that I do, where you have multiple flags, multiple countries, I have backup flags, I have economic flags, I have lifestyle flags, I have residency flags. And I did a video at my Sovereign CEO YouTube channel where I discussed the 5 or 6 different types of flags. So you can watch that video if you want. Plus, I am also an international business provider. So this year we are doing 2, not 1, but 2 get residency in Paraguay services where people fly down with us to Paraguay and we get them residency in Paraguay. We're doing that twice. Doing that once in March and once in July. We're also doing a get residency in Armenia service. We'll be doing that in Yerevan, Armenia this year. We will be doing a get residency in Dubai, the UAE. We're doing that in November of this year. Plus, I'm doing seminars all around the world. I'm doing masterminds around the world. I'm going on vacation once or twice. Plus, I have my own travel in there for my own Five Flags purposes. So you might be wondering how the hell I accomplish all this and how the hell I plan all this, and that's this podcast is about. So the first thing I do is I have a list, and I do this all based on spreadsheets. I am Mr. Spreadsheet. Maybe you know this. I have spreadsheets for all this stuff. I have a constant running list of countries that I need to visit and or want to visit soon. So first I have a list of all the cities that I want to visit in my lifetime. And I've discussed this before. I had a list of about 120, I think that's the number, of cities that I wanted to visit. I made this list many, many years ago, 10 plus years ago. And I said, I want to visit all 120 of these cities. By the way, in terms of goal setting or where I want to visit, I never focus on countries. I focus on cities. I think focusing on countries is stupid. If you've been to Beijing, China, and you've been there for 3 or 4 days, have you visited China? No, you visited Beijing. Right? If you have never been to the United States and you visit downtown New York City have you visited America? No, you visited New York. You can't visit a country unless the country is really tiny, like Singapore or Hong Kong, or maybe Luxembourg or Andorra. So unless it's a city-state, you can't visit a country. You can only visit cities. So when you're planning your travel, I would strongly suggest you get the concept of the country out of your head and focus in on cities. These guys say, I've been to 100 countries. No, you've been to 100 cities. You can't visit a country. So I would get that out of your head. I would focus on cities for all of your travel goals, your travel fantasies, your travel planning. Focus on cities, not countries. Makes it a lot easier and a lot more clear. So that's what I do. So I have this master list of 120 cities. I have visited most of them already. There's a few I haven't visited yet. I'll get to those soon. Then I have another list, which is a much smaller list of cities and countries, cities, cities that I want to visit soon. And when I say soon, that means the next 12 to 18 months, and or that I need to visit soon as the next 12 to 18 months. For example, I have legal residency in 5 different countries. And so some of these residencies require me to visit these countries on a semi-regular basis. So I have a 5 flag spreadsheet. I have many 5 flag spreadsheets that show the specific cities I need to visit in these residency countries by these certain deadline dates. For example, this year I have to visit Mexico before, I think, September. I have to do that to maintain my Mexican residency. By the way, we're also doing a Get Residency in Mexico service in Guadalajara in August. So we're doing a lot of stuff. So that means that I need to visit Mexico before I have a specific date, September 24th, 2023. So I have a few cities like this. And so those are also in that list. So that's like my raw material for me to design the next 12 to 18 months. I would strongly suggest that if you have an international lifestyle or want an international lifestyle, you plan things out at least 6 months in advance. 12 months is better. Even 18 months is better. So what I do most years is I will plan out my entire calendar year for the entire year, and then I'll have the next 6 months after that year kind of outline, not exactly, exact dates, but I have an idea of where I will go. So this is now the beginning of 2023. So what I did in December of 2022, November, is I sat down and I mapped out the travel for all of 2023 and then a rough estimate of what travel will look like the first 6 months of 2024 using that second smaller list of countries. And I can modify that list. So for example, with that list, I had places like Zurich, Switzerland. I had Guadalajara, Mexico. I had Paraguay, obviously, a few times. I had various places that I had to go, places I wanted to go, places I wanted to do seminars and business in. But also I added to that list places that I wanted to go for fun. For example, Pink Firefly and I, now that we live in Dubai, we both love the sun. We love the beach. We love that lifestyle. It's awesome here when it's not the summertime. And however, it was a little weird for both of us last Christmas, 2 months ago, to spend Christmas in the sun, sunny day, 79 degrees and sunny on the beach, which is what we did on Christmas Eve. It was a little weird. We missed the snow. So maybe for 2023, I said, well, why don't we go somewhere very snowy and have a snowy Christmas for 2023? And so I added in those possible places into my travel plan. So it's not just places I need to go and places I want to go for business, but also places I want to go for fun. We just purchased tickets for Maldives, which is like Bora Bora. I'm actually doing a Maldives mastermind in March. And we're going to go to an all-inclusive resort, Pink Firefly and I, in Maldives for about a week in March. We actually are on a villa out on the ocean. It's actually on the water. It's beautiful. It's great. So I planned that out as part of my year last year. So in other words, this is travel for all purposes: business purposes, Five Flags purposes, recreational purposes, fun purposes, what have you. I have a second home in Paraguay, so I need to be in Paraguay for my own reasons at least twice a year. And I want each visit to be at least 3 weeks long, if not longer, 4, 5, 6 weeks. I'll be there for about a month or so this summer, and I will be there for 3 weeks in, March this year. So anyway, I do that. So now I know exactly where I need to be, and I have approximate deadlines of when I need to be there. Okay. Then what I do is I have a spreadsheet. Now I used to do this on paper. I used to go to Office Depot and buy those little plastic dry erase calendars you can write on. Used to do that. I realized that wasn't very travel friendly, so I switched to a spreadsheet. It's a Google Docs spreadsheet that is designed like a calendar. And what I did and what I do is I will block off dates and times for a certain country. I'll color code it for a certain color so I could glance at it, look at a color, there's a key to the right, and I can see exactly where I'm going and what dates. And then that also tells me what countries I have to link together. So that's another important aspect of travel planning. For example, the next trip I take is going to be a little complicated. So I need to accomplish several things in this next trip, which I'm going to take in about 3 weeks. Why? Because we're doing a team thing there with my team for the Sovereign CEO Alpha 2.0 team, the people I work with. We're doing a team building thing there. Plus, we are doing an event there for all the people in the 500K Business Accelerator program. You go to 500k.io. That program is open now. We reopened that, by the way. Or the Focus program, which we recently closed. So I need to be there for a few days for these events. Then, while I'm in Vegas, I might as well go visit my family in Portland, Oregon / Seattle, Washington. I have them kind of spread out in that region, the Pacific Northwest. It doesn't make sense to go to Las Vegas and then go somewhere else if I don't take a few days and go visit my family. So I will do that, want to do that. Then I need to go down to Paraguay for one of my 2 to 3 yearly Paraguay visits, because if I'm on that side of the world, I didn't want to go back to Dubai and screw up my jet lag and my time zone again. I wanted to stay in the time zone. So if I'm in North America, I always think, can I attach a South American trip to this so I don't have to screw up my time zone? I have to be sensitive about that in terms of jet lag and things like that, because that damages my productivity, and I am Mr. Productivity. I can't damage my productivity, so I always try to combine these trips. So I have a three-pronged attack. I have Vegas, I have Portland/Seattle, and then I have Asuncion, Paraguay. So I had to map that out. How exactly would that work? What flights do I need to take from Dubai to Vegas? And there'll be some layovers. Then from Vegas to Portland, that's a quickie little flight. Then from Portland down to Asuncion, Paraguay. Then from Paraguay back to Dubai. So I had to map out how long I wanted to stay in each location, link those together. Then I had Billy, who helps me with my travel because she likes doing that. And I had her look at the different flight options, layover options, if I had to spend the night, all those other things, and figure all that out based on the dates. Now, fortunately, my dates are somewhat flexible, so I can flex the dates if they don't work out quite well. And then I map out that entire trip. That's a reasonably complicated trip, but in my world, that's kind of normal. And if you say, God, this sounds fucking complicated, well, then don't live this lifestyle. Do it more simply. I'll give you an example of the number of flights I have to do on this. So what I have to do is I have to leave Dubai. I think I have a layover in somewhere in Europe. Then I go from Europe to Las Vegas, okay? Then I'm in Las Vegas for a few days. Then I take a flight from Vegas to Portland, Oregon. Okay, I'm in Portland, Oregon. I drive up to Seattle, Washington for a few days while I'm in Portland area to drive back down to Portland. Then from Portland to get to Asuncion, Paraguay, this is fun. I have to go from Portland to Houston, Texas, spend the night in Houston, Texas at the airport. Sometimes I got to do that. Then fly from Houston, Texas to Panama City. Then from Panama City to Asuncion. Kind of a mess, but that's the way it goes. And then I'll be in Asuncion for about 3 weeks. Another thing I do is if a place is difficult to get to, like Paraguay, that is one of the negatives of Paraguay, or positives, depending on how you spin this. Paraguay's hard to get to, which is one of the reasons I like it, because no one goes there. It's hard to get to. I just told you the nightmare I had to go through to get to Paraguay. If you have to go through a nightmare set of flights to go to a certain location, you probably want to be there a while. I would never want to do that flight set just to be in Paraguay for 3 or 4 days. What's the fucking point? No. So I'm going to be there for, I think, 3 weeks. And when I go back to Paraguay in the summer, I'm going to be there for about a month, like I said. And then that trip is not over. So I got to get back home to Dubai, right? So in Asuncion, Paraguay, I fly to, I think, Spain. Is that right? Yeah, I fly from Spain, from Paraguay, Asuncion, Paraguay to Spain, Madrid, and then from Madrid down to Dubai. And then I'm in Dubai for a few days, adjust the time zone, and then I go to the Maldives with my wife. Crazy. So again, if they're like, that's crazy, I would never do that, then don't do that. Use these tools based on what you want to accomplish, not what I want. Live your life, not mine. Now, something else I do when I plan is there are certain months that I don't want to be in certain places. Okay, for example, Paraguay in January is really hot. It's swelteringly hot. It's awful. You don't really want to go there. Okay, even people there complain how hot it is. So there are times I want to go to Paraguay, and January would have been the perfect time. I go, you know what? No, I don't want to go in January. That would suck. Also, I've mentioned this several times. Here in Dubai, it is really fucking hot June, July, and August. It fucking sucks. And so my goal every year is to not be in Dubai June, July, and August. Because last year I spent some significant time during June, July, August, and it was fucking awful. And I never want to go through that again. So this year in 2023, I will be in Dubai June, July, and August. I'll only be in the city, I would think, about a grand total of 7 or 8 days. I made sure last year to plan out me being gone from June, July, August out of Dubai. So that's another part of the plan, is maybe there are certain places you don't want to be. If you visit China, you can't right now because of a certain problem with a certain disease. But normally when you visit China, you don't want to go to China, or even Hong Kong for that matter, in February. Why? Chinese New Year. You just have to be aware of these things. There's times of the year you want to visit these certain countries, and times of the year you don't want to visit these certain countries. So you have to factor that in your plan as well. So everything on that little mini list of all the places I have to go to, not only do I have deadlines, but I also have little tags onto each item of when not to go. So to formulate that plan based on that. Make sense? So I will do that throughout the entire 12 months, or at least close to it. I have the next 10 months planned out exactly. I haven't quite nailed down November, December yet, but I will soon. I just kind of keep those flexible for the holidays, for Christmas and things like that, because Pink Firefly and I may change our minds. But I plan all that out. Then I get plane tickets when it makes sense. Sometimes it makes sense to get plane tickets well in advance. Sometimes it makes sense to wait to buy plane tickets at a certain time. This is where I'm a little weak, because I don't do my own travel arrangements in terms of buying tickets, and I haven't for many years. I've outsourced that. Billy is a wizard of that stuff, so she does that for me right now. because she likes to. I don't think she should because I think she's higher level than that, but she likes to do travel, so I let her do my travel. It's fine. And so she knows when the correct time is to buy certain flights for certain cities. And so she'll hit me up in Basecamp and say, hey, now it's time to look at flights for this. Usually that's how it works. Or I'll say, hey, I'm concerned about this trip. I really want to nail down flights now because if we don't get that flight, we may not get a connecting flight. So I'd rather have this now, even though it may be not the best time in terms of price to do that. Depends on that scenario. So we purchase flights out as needed. It's not like I sit down and buy all my flights and all my hotels and all my Airbnbs for the entire 12 months in the future. It's usually about 3 months out, 3 to 4 months out, depending on the scenario. Now, in terms of flights versus hotels and Airbnbs, this might seem obvious, but some people fuck this up. You get your flights first, then you get your hotel or Airbnbs. So I'll look at hotels and Airbnbs and I'll mark the ones that I think are favorites and I'll make a note of them on my spreadsheet. But I don't reserve any until I get my flights. Why is that? Because the flights could change 5 days from now where I may have to move a day or two. And if I reserve the Airbnb or the hotel and then I get the flight and it's 1 day off, now I got to call the hotel and change the reservation or screw around the Airbnb, which is really hard to change. You don't want to do that. So you get all your flights nailed down. So this complicated trip I just talked about, we got all the flights completely nailed down 100% before I booked anything in terms of hotels or Airbnbs. Then when the flights were nailed down, then I went back and just reserved them quickly because I already knew which Airbnbs and which hotels I wanted for each location. Caleb, do you use hotels or Airbnbs? It depends. It really depends on where I'm going, how long I'm there, and what the reason I'm going there is. So for this particular trip, this complicated one, in Las Vegas, I'm not doing Airbnb. That would be stupid. It's Vegas. Being on the Strip in Vegas is awesome. I'm staying at my favorite hotel, The Wynn. That's where I have a regular room at The Wynn. I stay there all the time. I've done at least two YouTube videos on this. So I'm staying at a cool resort, The Wynn, in Las Vegas. Then in Portland. Am I getting an Airbnb in Portland? No, because Portland sucks. Portland's shitty. So what I'm getting is a decently nice hotel far away from downtown Portland. Portland, Oregon is, just like most cities on the West Coast, a collapsing shithole city, just like Los Angeles and Seattle. And so you don't want to be anywhere near downtown. So I had no interest whatsoever getting an Airbnb in Portland. Kill me. Instead, I got a decently nice hotel away from downtown Portland. Same thing with Seattle. Hotels, not Airbnbs. Now in Paraguay is not collapsing. Paraguay is on the rise. And with Paraguay, you can get some really cheap, awesome apartments as Airbnbs. So when I go down to Paraguay, I'm going to have an Airbnb for 3 weeks. Didn't make sense to do a hotel, although I've done hotels in Paraguay too. The reason I prefer Airbnbs in places like Paraguay is that I don't like the maids to bother me when I'm in the hotel room working. I'm in my room working most of the day. I have a very exciting life that way. But I work, okay? I work. I have 3 companies. I work a lot. So the problem with hotels is maids bug you. Even if you leave the do not disturb thing, they bug you, the housekeeping. So in Airbnbs, most of them, no one bugs you, which is kind of nice. And if you're going to be there a significant period of time, it makes more sense to do Airbnb, especially if you get a good deal on places in Airbnbs like Paraguay, South America, Southeast Asia, places like that. So again, it's not a hard and fast rule. You know, I hate Airbnbs, I only do hotels, or I hate hotels, I only do Airbnbs. I hear a lot of that on the internet. It really depends on the scenario, dude. Depends where you're going, why you're going, how long you're going to be there. Depends on a lot of factors. So I do both. So that's really it. I could talk a lot about how I handle things like frequent flyer miles and travel hacking and things like that. I can certainly do a podcast on that if you like. I've discussed that on podcasts before. If you have interest in that, I can talk about that. In this podcast, I want to talk more about how I plan my travel in advance. That's basically how this works. If you have more questions on this, let me know. If you want me to do other podcast topics on this topic or related topics, also let me know. And I will see you in the next podcast. Have fun. Bye.